We are live on Tuesday, February the 6th, and that means we are just 5 days away from Super Bowl Sunday, this Sunday, Super Bowl 58. But in the meantime, there is a ton of college and pro basketball on a daily basis. And this is your Sports Central, as Teddy Covers says, for sports betting action on a daily basis. WagerTalk Today, every noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday. Of course, archived 24/7 here on WagerTalk TV. And I said 5 days away. Well, 5 is a magic number on Tuesday because it is also Customer Appreciation Tuesday today, which means every capper has a top best bet for just $5. No promo code needed right now at wagertalk.com. Unlimited. Can get as many cappers as you like, and you save an instant 80% off the normal price for a single play. Tuesday only, and that includes some advanced NFL this weekend, but it's only available today on Tuesday. The clock strikes midnight. It goes back to the normal price of $25 per play. I am Steve Merrill, filled in for the Prez, joined by my co-host Teddy Covers, and we've got a great show today. We got some more Super Bowl prop talk. Teddy Covers himself. Also a lot of basketball talk. We've got Bryan Power and Zinno breaking down some college hoops. And of course, the NBA man himself, Skee Profit from the NBA. So let's bring on Bryan Power. BP. Bryan, a little birdie tells me we might be back Friday at 7 o'clock for Super Bowl props.
Yeah, great to be here, guys. Coming off a little family vacation. If anyone was wondering where I was, why I wasn't on any of the shows, it was in Puerto Rico, and great to be back.
As Joe Ranieri would say, nobody was wondering. But I'm not Joe Ranieri. I'm nice to Bryan Power.
Yeah. Yes, I know. I was going to send Joe a video just to let him know I was all right. I know he was waiting with bated breath. He was very concerned, I'm sure.
Let's start with some analysis of college basketball today. You have a couple of games you want to break down. We'll start in the Big Ten, Michigan State and Minnesota. You're looking at a money line play in this one. You like the Spartans minus the price. Tell me why.
Sure, Teddy. So this is a fascinating matchup. You got Michigan State 14-8, a 3-point road favorite over 14-7 Minnesota. And it is time, Teddy, for one of your favorite parts of the week, checking in with my power ratings, because I happen to agree with the odds makers here. Not only that, check this out. I got Michigan State, as disappointing as they've been, still as a top 15 team in the country. Again, power ratings for me, they're predictive, not reactive. I'm expecting a strong finish from Tom Izzo as per usual. We'll talk about what they've been doing lately in just a moment. Meanwhile, Minnesota, yes, they're the best ATS team in the country. They are not in my top 75 teams nationally. I think this has been a very fortunate team. If you've been betting them, God bless you. You've been doing well. 18-3 at the betting window. 14-1 ATS at home is Minnesota. But we've got to talk about, guys, what they pulled off last week. A pair of improbable victories, quite frankly. They were down 14 at the half at Penn State. They win 83-74. Game tied at 70 with under 3 minutes to go. So I'd call that a misleading final a little bit. Then on Saturday at home against Northwestern, what do they do for an encore? Well, they were down 8 with under 6 minutes to go, were the Golden Gophers. Northwestern proceeds to go ice cold the rest of the way. Minnesota wins in overtime 75-66. My view, Minnesota is a team ripe for some serious regression the rest of the way. As for Michigan State, typical Tom Izzo fashion, they're turning it on down the stretch, winning 5 of 6 overall. Ken Palm, kind of in line with me. They've got the Spartans top 30 in adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. There aren't a ton of teams in the country that can say they're top 30 in both of those metrics. And oh, by the way, these teams met last month. Michigan State closed as a 12-point favorite. Yes, that was at home. Yes, they did not cover, but they still pretty much led start to finish and won by 10. Yes, Teddy, I did play Michigan State money line here, but I would not fault anyone for laying 3 or less if your juice tolerance does not extend that high. I think Sparty gets a big Big Ten win on Tuesday.
So let's talk about why Minnesota has been so successful against the spread this season. It was a team that came into the campaign, no expectations whatsoever. All right. They've been tough as nails. You talked about the Northwestern was my only loser on Saturday. A good day on Saturday. The only bad play, the only loss I had was Northwestern. And yeah, they went cold down the stretch. That was Minnesota playing elite level defense. This team, they play hungry every game. They play hard every game. They're in every game. And they keep, as you talked about, you have them outside your top 75, so do the markets. And all they do is just keep winning games and covering point spreads. So talk to me about why you think the Gophers are primed for regression. It was like 3 weeks ago. They lost. They lost at Indiana, I think it was, and they came home and lost to Iowa. And I'm like, oh yeah, here comes Minnesota. We're gonna. And all they've done since then, 4-0 against the spread. Tell me about why you think this team's an overvalued commodity now, despite how well they're playing and how little the market seems to value them.
Yeah, Teddy, as we talk about multiple times, it's about choosing your spots. I was actually on Indiana in that game against Minnesota. It's the only time I faded them all year, the Golden Gophers, I believe. And that was the start of a 4-game straight up losing streak. Like you, I was like, okay, here comes the regression. And then came the back-to-back wins last week. But again, I go back to what I said. They were down by 14 at Penn State. They, were fortunate to beat Northwestern in overtime. Obviously, you thought enough that you wanted to take the Wildcats that one. In my view, Minnesota's very lucky not to be coming into this game on a 6-game straight-up losing streak. If that was the case, what do we think this line would be? I think it would be significantly higher. I think we're getting a discount on Michigan State, who closed -12 in East Lansing not that long ago. I mean, that was right after the Iowa game. In fact, it was, what are we talking, 3 weeks ago at this point, 2 weeks ago? Not enough has changed. I think eventually the regression monster comes for everybody, and it will come tonight for Minnesota.
It's Brian Power, fresh back from vacation. If you want to see how Joe Ranieri reacts to Brian Power's return, check the college basketball show out at 2 o'clock Eastern today, and I will be on with you, Brian, to protect you along with Adam Trigger. And it'll be a great college hoops show. Let's talk some more college hoops. We had Adam on yesterday, and he talked about how it was a tough spot for Kansas off the big emotional win against Houston Saturday, and they went to K-State, lost as a road favorite in overtime. And now you've got a similar situation maybe with North Carolina coming off the big home win against Duke. Is Clemson a live dog tonight for that reason? How are you breaking this one down?
Yeah, I think they are, Steve, and I'll get this out of the way first. Just give Teddy the ammunition that he needs to counter. North Carolina, there's no denying, right, that they're the best team in the ACC. They've been rolling 11-1 last 12 overall. The only loss, kind of a head scratcher, right? Last Tuesday, they go down by just 1 point at Georgia Tech. Most of the conference wins for the Tar Heels have been by double digits. I recognize all that. But Steve, you identified kind of the start of the handicap for me. Classic flat spot coming off the win over Duke on Saturday. I mean, you guys probably saw that game. There was so much emotion in the building. Really hard to follow up. And it was a really impressive performance, again, from North Carolina. Are they going to be able to match that on Tuesday? Tonight, I'm saying no. Again, let's go back. We talked about this concept with our last game, Michigan State, Minnesota. Last month, North Carolina goes to Clemson. They closed as 3-point underdogs. Now, they opened -8.5. Yes, we have to adjust based on how North Carolina's looked over the last month or so, but I think this is an over-adjustment from the odds makers. The market seems to concur because they look at the WagerTalk.com live odds screen right now. Clemson down to +7, +6.5, depending on your book. And what you need to know about that first North Carolina-Clemson meeting, guys, Clemson couldn't hit water from a boat. They were 1 for 18 from 3. North Carolina, teams are going eventually, I swear to you, I promise they will. This will happen. Teams are going to start hitting threes against North Carolina. It will come. You cannot continue to hit. North Carolina cannot have opponents continue to hit like whatever it is, 26% from 3 for the year. That's insane. That's just begging for regression. I know Clemson struggled, Teddy. They've dropped 6 of 9 overall, including the game to North Carolina. But get this, last 3 losses for Clemson by a total of just 4 points. I'll take Clemson plus the points here.
So, first of all, I love the regression monster. I'm letting you know I'm stealing that from you. Because that's a great line. The regression monster is coming for you. I love it. So, well done. And yeah, I'll try to give you credit if I remember. But I'm hijacking that line. It's beautiful.
Okay.
But when we actually look at North Carolina's track record after facing Duke, I just went back for the last 5 years while you were talking. They've had no problems, ATS, in the game after Duke. Lots of blowouts, lots of wins. I think they only lost once straight up in the last 5 years, the meeting after facing the Blue Devils. So we understand, in theory, it's supposed to be a letdown, but the results don't show that. What's your take?
I'll say modern college basketball, Teddy, as you know, long-term historical trends, it's kind of it's getting tougher and tougher for me to apply this. There's so much turnover year to year. Now, if that was the only reason here, if there wasn't all some of the other stuff I talked about, I would maybe be a little bit leerier about backing Clemson, but it's not the only thing. I look at that first meeting, the fact North Carolina closed as an underdog. Yes, we do have to change. Obviously, they deserve to be favored by more than 3 here, but I just think it's an over-adjustment, and I again go back to the 3-point shooting numbers. If there's a team, an opponent for North Carolina that was certainly due to start knocking them down from behind the arc, it would be Clemson. You can't count on a team going 1 for 18 2 times against you from 3. You just can't. Clemson, they're a desperate team. Virginia, I guess, is stepping up. I was dead wrong. I had a plan, full candor. I had a play in Miami last night. Not going to win many games when you score 38 points or whatever in over 40 minutes. But Virginia's stepping up as that number 3 team in the ACC. But I think Clemson, not that long ago, they were kind of perceived as the number 3 team. This is just a lot of points in, again, what I think is a flat spot for a North Carolina team that is due to come back to earth somewhat.
Yeah, that Virginia team, by the way, last night extended the longest home winning streak in the nation. I believe it's now 23 games. And don't feel bad, Brian. I had a free play on Virginia, so we countered it for people on the site yesterday at WagerTalk. And Adam actually talked about that game here as well. Adam was also on Virginia here on WagerTalk today. So anyway, some people got that. Yeah. But that's a team we mentioned yesterday. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, that I think is the only time in the last 2 years I took Miami of Florida. All last year, all I did was say how overrated that team was and the regression monster was going to come. Okay, to use maybe that's the last time I'll get to use my own phrase there, Teddy. And of course, they made the Final Four. People were ripping on me on Twitter when they were making that run. So I guess I was right. I was just a year early on Miami of Florida, and joke was on me taking them in Charlottesville last night.
Well, I will say this. If you could figure out a way to predict 3-point margin in any particular game, or if you could figure out turnovers in an NFL game ahead of time, you'd hit probably 80% against the spread and not have to do any other handicapping, because that really is the variance in the two sports. And I do think there's a regression to the mean at some point. But like you said, Brian, with Miami, you got to make sure you're not early, and you got to kind of figure out when it is. So, but it's an excellent point. North Carolina, probably not that good from 3-point defense this year and are due to regress at some point. Brian Power talking some college hoops. He'll be back in about a 2-hour span here with me and Adam Trigger and Joe Ranieri on the College Basketball Tip-Off Show. And Joe is going to welcome him back, so you got to check it. It's must-see TV at 2 o'clock Eastern here on WagerTalk. And you can, of course, watch the archive replay 24/7 as well. Brian, what else you got going on for $5 Customer Appreciation Tuesday?
Yeah, Steve, Teddy, thanks for having me as always. Look, we talk college basketball here on the program. My $5 customer appreciation play happens to be in the NBA. It is a rare 4% NBA best bet side. How rare have 4% NBA sides been for me? I've released only 2 since Christmas, and both of them won, which is really nice. And all 4% plays across all sports, again, going back to Christmas, 67%. That's all sports, all 4% plays. So feeling really good about this one. You said it, Steve, just $5 at my page. That's WT.buzz/BP. And I'll see everyone again, 2 p.m. Eastern sharp.
And once again, that play normally is $25, but you're getting an instant 80% discount because it is Customer Appreciation Tuesday, which means that best bet from Brian Power is just $5. And everybody else has a $5 best bet as well, including Teddy Covers and myself, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. All right, Teddy, we're going to talk some more college hoops in a few moments with Mark Zinno, but first we're going to look at the Super Bowl again. Yesterday on Monday, you and I talked about some of our fondest memories, but it can also go the other way. Let's talk about some of our less fond memories from Super Bowl history.
And it's funny. You go through the fondest memory, the Bucs over the Raiders, Seahawks over the Broncos, Chiefs over the Niners, and the last one, and you're like, yeah, I really enjoyed those days. Making my list of the worst Super Bowls, you're like, that was freaking awful. Oh, my God, this one was worse. Yeah, it just goes to show the bad losses linger longer than the good wins do. So biggest losses. For me, 3 really stand out in the Super Bowl. There was the Colts versus the Bears, the Rex Grossman year. And I was in an offshore contest where I was going to get 50 dimes on one side and 20 dimes on the other side, regardless of who won. Lenny from Cascade, if you remember. Johnny Detroit remembers that guy. Yeah. Everybody remembers Lenny. So I got this contest, And I'm going to hedge. You better believe it. Between 20K and 50K, I'm going to hedge. Except for that. So I hedge with the Bears. The Bears lose. And then the sportsbook goes out of business the next day. And I get nothing. And I have to pay the hedge bet. That Super Bowl frickin' sucked. That is 3. 2 is Patriots-Falcons. I mean, 28-3. I had the Falcons on all the alternate lines. I had a minus 14.5 and plus, I forget, plus 1,000, plus 700, whatever it was. Minus 10.5, minus 7.5, minus 3.5. I'm going to cash all of these. I'm going to have literally a monster payday. And of course, the plus 3.5, which they covered until losing the toss in overtime. I told my wife, we were watching the game together. I'm like, relax. I watch football. The Patriots aren't coming back to win. Look, the Falcons are already in field goal range, and New England needs 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions. It ain't happening. It happened. That Super Bowl sucked. But the very worst one of all of them was even before I moved to Vegas. Here's a bookie story for you. You know, I'm booking in Michigan, and they all hate the Packers. It's Lions country. The Packers won the Super Bowl last year. They're minus 12 against the Patriots, the Desmond Howard game. Packers, what are they, minus 11.5, minus 12, minus 12.5 against the Broncos. And that loser, that career-long loser until that point, John Elway. Real odds, Green Bay minus 700 on the money line, minus 800 on the money line. Denver plus 600. And the guys where I was working were willing to take the Broncos at even money. Just, give me the Broncos. Give me the Broncos. I'm all you can eat. I gave it to them. All you can eat. Take Denver. Take Denver. Knock yourself out. Take Denver. Even money. Even money. Who wants? Who wants? All you can eat. Well, I lost so much that day, I had to take money out of the safe to pay everybody and then sneak it back in the next day. That, my friends, was a crappy Super Bowl. That's my bottom 3, Steve. You got anything that stands out to you?
Wait, which Super Bowl are you talking about? Packers Broncos?
Yeah.
Didn't the Packers won on Desmond's kick return, didn't they? The Broncos lost that game.
That was New England. That was the previous year.
Okay. They're running together for me. That's why I was getting confused there. Yeah.
The Packers Broncos is the one where they let Elway score so that they'd have time for Favre on the last drive. They did the on the
yeah.
20, and then Favre did nothing on the last drive.
Yeah, that was it's a lot of times teams should let teams score, and that's always a point spread moment, to say the least, usually when it occurs in most games. Teddy, it's interesting. I was thinking a lot about this because I knew we were doing this segment today. I'm kind of proud of myself in a way. We always talk about don't let the losses linger. I honestly can't remember like a moment where I was emotionally high or low during the Super Bowl, because I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this now 28 years. 1996 was my first year as a full-time professional handicapper football season. I don't remember who I had in a lot of these Super Bowls. I'm dead serious. So, I don't know if that's good, if that's bad, if I'm losing it now that I'm 50. But, I think it's a good thing, actually. It's kind of an emotional keel. But I will point out one, and I don't recall who I was on, but I remember that Seahawks-Patriot game when they got the late score about 5-7 years ago. I don't think that was a good thing. And that's one, obviously, that went down to the wire. But I honestly don't remember. Like that Falcon-Patriot game, I'm trying to remember who I had. And then I think I had the over. So the comeback was actually good, because I think maybe it went over because of overtime, if I'm not mistaken, in that game.
It was over.
But, it really does run together for me. What's that?
It was over already, but the last, they were at
when they tied
62 at the end of regulation.
Okay.
I don't remember what the total was.
But it was 28-3 at the half. I definitely remember that. So probably, we weren't feeling great about the over at that point. But yeah, I don't, honestly, I don't really have like highs or lows. I think that's probably a good thing.
It wasn't 28-3 at half. It was 21-3 at half, and Atlanta came out and scored first drive, second half. I remember all of them, Steve. Every one of them. The Super Bowl, I mean, I can go through and tell you who I had, how the game went, literally every Super Bowl since I've been to Vegas. But that's also part of living in Vegas, that the Super Bowl Sunday is a huge deal every year. Every year it's a memorable event. Every year I'm at a big party, or I'm at a live event, or I'm on camera, and you remember them because there's something that goes with it. Whereas when you're at home, you're just, watching the game, or you watch the game with your friends, or it's not necessarily the same big event that it is here. Maybe.
And from
my memory's from not better than yours.
Yeah, and actually, I've got a pretty good memory. That's why it's confusing to me that I don't recall like who even played in the last 20, 30 years. Even though I do this full time as a professional, but I could tell you the first 25 Super Bowls who played exact each and every year. Like I had those memorized as a kid. And the first one I started watching was Super Bowl 16. You're probably a couple years older. But that's another funny phenomenon. I can do the same thing with the World Series. I can tell you every team that played in the 80s. I can't tell you who played 5 years ago. I'd have to look it up. That's an interesting thing, but it also makes sense because we're looking at so many games on a daily basis. But yeah, your thoughts on that. And viewers, chime in also, live chat, but more importantly, comments below. Do you remember the moments, because Teddy, it's something that runs together for me at this point.
Yeah, I remember a ton of them, but it also speaks volumes. What you're saying, Steve, really speaks volumes about what I try to preach when it comes to Super Bowl Sunday, especially in the modern era.
It's a single game.
It's just another game. It's just a game. It's not the be-all or end-all of your entire season. It's one game on one day. So your point speaks volumes for that.
And I will say the only bad beat I can really remember, and I keep using over and over for any sport, it's because it's on bad beats on ESPN probably, is that Northwestern Ohio State football game, because we had Northwestern as an underdog. They were covering with the ball on the final play of the game, and they turned it over. Ohio State ran it back in for the meaningless score. That's the only bad beat I still remember, and I tell people that story to this day, but it's probably because I see it every other week when they do the segment on TV. So that's another reason. But yeah, look, all seriousness, it's not a bad thing not to remember bad beats, big wins, because you should be on an even keel. And I think most of the viewers know I preach that. That's my mantra. And yours too, Teddy. That's why I'm impressed. Your memory is good, though, with the Super Bowl. It's not a bad thing. Let's bring on Mark Zinno. Let's see if he has a memory. Mark, real quick, any bad beats? We didn't have you on yesterday. You can give your favorite moment as well, whichever one you choose. But do you remember the games? I mean, you like Teddy, or are you more like me, where they all just kind of run together?
No, I remember a lot of them. I mean, look, my favorite one was Super Bowl 25, obviously, as a Giants fan. The wide right, one of the better.
I do remember that.
One of the better Super Bowls we've ever had as far as competition is concerned. It certainly was reminiscent of kind of like that era of football with the Bill Parcells defenses. Teddy, it's funny you mentioned the 28-3 thing, because I was here in Atlanta at the time. And before those playoffs had started, I had actually put a future on the Falcons at 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. And I got up the morning of the Super Bowl with the Falcons in there, and I didn't think I was going to hedge. I said, you know what? I think they got this. I kind of felt leading up to the whole week, I felt like they had it. The morning I got up at the Super Bowl, I just had that sinking feeling in my stomach, and I just said, you know what? Let me put some money down on the Patriots money line here for just to cover myself, because I was really ready to cash a big ticket. And at 28-3, I remember texting people and looking at 20-3 at halftime. I'm like, this is insane. Like, I can't believe what I'm actually watching here. And
it was over.
Yeah, I thought it was over. They go up 28-3. I was literally counting, money at that point in time. And when they started coming back, I looked at my ex-wife at the time, former wife, now ex-wife. I looked at the time and said, thank God I hedged, because this could get really ugly here in a minute. And as soon as they hit overtime, I said, thank God I put money down on the Patriots, because the Falcons were not winning that game once they hit overtime. They were dead in the water. So it was one of those where I was thankful that I actually put money down and hedged in that situation. And really, ever since then, I've been a very big proponent of hedging when the opportunity presents itself.
I thought you were going to say you were mad that you'd hedged when it was 28-3 and you threw some money away. That's how I would have felt at that point.
I was just glad I was going to cash more money than what I did. Like, my hedge was it was enough to give me a little bit more back than what I had wagered. That was it.
True.
Like, it was only designed to make sure I at least didn't lose anything. The hedge. Like, in that case, I wasn't trying to actually look at percentage. I said, let me just get myself a little, $100 over what I wagered and call it a day and get out of there. Not a loss. Right. And that's essentially what I did. But yeah, I mean, trust me, it was a couple of thousand left on the table that the Falcons would had they pulled the whole thing out.
Well, that goes back to what I was talking about, the emotional aspect of it. I call it an emotional hedge, and it really is just to keep you from going on tilt the next 5 days as you're handicapping college and pro basketball the next week. Hey, speaking of college hoops, you're going to be hosting tonight, actually, I believe, at 6 Eastern. We'll talk about that in a little bit, the Instagram show. Make sure we mention that on the way out. But let's look at Charlotte, South Florida. Talk about that one first. We'll get to another college game after that as well.
Yeah, guys, it's interesting. Listen, this is not a conference that I typically have followed in years past. But earlier in the year, I bet on Charlotte when they were hosting FAU, and I took them +8. And I remember watching the game vividly, one of the earlier Saturdays in January. And I never thought that Charlotte was going to win the game. But I felt like it was just too big of a number in the spot situationally for FAU. Didn't look good. Well, Charlotte did win the game. And ever since then, I have tried multiple occasions, 2 and 3 times, to find the spot to fade Charlotte and I've been wrong because they have won 8 straight, and they've gone 7-0-1 against the number. And they're now facing a South Florida team that has won 7 straight and gone 6-0-1 against the number. So we get a short line here with Charlotte getting 2 on the road. But I think there's some clear differences between these teams right now. If you look at the winning streak for South Florida, they've beaten Temple twice, Wichita State, ECU, and Rice. Those are all teams in the bottom 4 in offensive efficiency within the conference. So these South Florida numbers look a little bit inflated to me, given the teams that they've beaten and they've played. Go look at Charlotte, what they have beaten along the way. I mentioned FAU, UTSA, and Tulane. They're all teams in the top 5 in offensive efficiency, and Charlotte is one of the best defensive teams, not only in the conference, but in the country. So the 49ers are better on defense, and during their win streak, they've held opponents to 42% shooting and 28% from beyond the arc. USF, during their win streak, kept their opponents to 41% shooting and 30% from beyond the arc. But again, remember, the 49ers did this against teams that were much higher in offensive efficiency, so they've played better offensive teams during their win streak. Charlotte is one of the slowest tempo teams in the country. I think they're bottom 5 guys. But they've actually proven they can win both ways. We've seen them during this win streak win games 75-71, 78-74, like higher scoring teams. And they've also won the slower kind of games where they've won 68-55 down in the low 60s and high 50s. So the 49ers the better shooting team. They're the better free throw shooting team here. I'll take the 2 points tonight. I think they come out on top, but I'll take the 2 in case this thing is extra tight with the free throw shooting of the 49ers in my back pocket.
In a matchup of hot versus hot, Mark Zinno says take a look at the hot Charlotte 49ers as dogs at USF. Let's talk some Big 12 basketball. Oklahoma and BYU. Right now, look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. I can't find the game because it's college basketball and they all hide them. Nonetheless, look, here it is. Look at the WagerTalk live odds screen. We've seen a little bit of money for the Sooners this morning. BYU opened as chalk last night. I'm seeing Oklahoma now -1.5, even -2 out there. Total $1.50 for this contest. What do you think? Sooners, Cougars. Tell me about your money line wager for this one.
Well, now you get Oklahoma in this very profitable situation, which we've seen this season, guys, where you have the home favorite that is unranked playing against the road underdog that is ranked, right? I mean, this is a situation that's been cashing at about 67% this year with the home favorite that is unranked against the ranked road favorite. BYU is 1-3 against the number on the road this season, just 3-5 against the spread in conference play. And this is about Oklahoma being just a dramatically different team at home, scoring 82 points per game on nearly 50% shooting, guys, 49.6% shooting from the floor. Defensively, they give up just 63 points per game and hold opponents to 40% shooting. Now, BYU's got a bad perimeter defense. They're 12th out of 14 teams in the Big 12 in three-point field goal percentage defense against an OU team that's making 36% of their threes at home this year. And that's going to be a big determinant in this game. Plus, OU, great on the perimeter defense. Second in the conference in three-point field goal percentage defense. So BYU is going to have to go inside, right? Because they're not going to be able to shoot threes. That actually helps OU as well. They're the number 1 team in the conference in rebounding, in offensive rebounding percentage on defense, limiting opponents to just 25% offensive rebounds. I mean, you get a team right here in Oklahoma that kind of really needs a win to get back on track after they've fallen out of the top 25 here. The home court advantage is going to be too much. Haven't seen much from BYU on the road this year that makes me want to back them in this spot. Give me the Sooners on the money line here as the favorite.
Mark Zinno talking some college basketball. Mark, you're going to be back, I believe, is it 6 o'clock Eastern? You're going to be hosting the Instagram live show, so definitely tell us about that, and also let us know what you got going on at WagerTalk.com for $5 Customer Appreciation Tuesday.
Yeah, guys, on the WagerTalk Instagram page, we go live at 6 o'clock. KIV, pregame with KIV, filling in for Kelly today as she's on Destinations Unknown doing what Kelly does when she likes to travel. So I'll fill in tonight and run the show here with the college basketball slate for tonight. So you got to go to Instagram, do the Instagram live stuff. You'll see us right there if you're following WagerTalk on Instagram. If you're not, please go do it at WagerTalk, and you'll get a notification when we go live right at 6 o'clock. So I'll be hosting that up on the site. My $5 play, guys, is a Super Bowl prop. 15-4 prop run, 7-2 in my last 9 NFL props dating back to late November here. So a $5 Super Bowl prop for mine that is up on my page. And for tonight, 4% best bet in college hoops. Even though we took a hit this weekend with losing a 4% in college, still 60% on my 4% plays in college hoops this year. That is up available on my page as well, along with the $5 NFL Super Bowl prop. So check it all out. wt.buzz/MZ, guys, where you go.
And once again, that $5 Super Bowl prop goes back to the normal price at midnight. So you do not want to wait. You only get it for $5 on Tuesday and Tuesday only, because it's $5 Customer Appreciation Tuesday at WagerTalk.com. And once again, check out, follow WagerTalk on Instagram. I've started posting free plays throughout the week on IG as well. You can follow me there. And once again, watch that show live at 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 Pacific tonight on Tuesday, hosted by Mark. All right, Teddy, yesterday we're doing reversal today. We did the fondest moments, then we did the less fond moments. And then yesterday you gave us a prop on the shortest touchdown over under. And it's funny, as you were doing that, I was wondering what your thoughts were on the longest touchdown. I often have a feel for that shortest touchdown, as it's kind of a fade the public prop, as we talked about. But I'm curious your take on the longest touchdown of the game, where that's priced, and if you're going over or under for your big game breakdown. Don't mute yourself. You can tell us. Don't keep it a secret. Take two.
Yeah, I got it. And I don't know what I was doing when I muted myself. I'm happy to tell you all about it. Look, we're talking Super Bowl props all week when it comes to big game breakdown on Wager Talk Today. Yesterday, we talked about, as you mentioned, Steve, the shortest touchdown of the game, under 1.5 yards. Today, we're going to talk about the longest touchdown of the game. Now, in many years, you see this prop in the 47.5, 48.5 yard range. I'm seeing it 40.5 yards, 41.5 yards this year, which is already telling us something. How do I expect the game to play out? Talked about it yesterday. I see longer, slower, methodical drives. The Chiefs spent the whole year doing exactly that. They have 3rd and 9, they get 10. That's what Kansas City has done. The Niners had more big plays than KC, but they too very comfortable playing a slower paced, long drive style. These are two top-tier defenses. You're not moving the ball up and down the field all day. There will be punts. There will be field goals. So in a low possession game, two defenses that don't give up big plays, two offenses that are comfortable grinding yards, clock, and first downs. We could get a big play, TD, here. Okay, there's a reason this prop isn't juiced to high heaven. All right, you can get an interception return, a fumble return, a kick return, a punt return. They're all fairly random, not necessarily something I would be able to handicap ahead of time. But I'm not expecting any of that. All right, nor am I expecting a 40-plus yard big play touchdown for either side, not against these two defenses. The under has cashed this prop 4 times in the last 5 years. I expect it to cash again on Super Bowl Sunday. Longest touchdown of the game, under 40.5, 41.5. It's best to shop around. You'd hate to get hooked on that one. Nonetheless, the concept is there. Longest TD, under the yardage. Steve, back to you.
Yeah, Teddy, and if you check Ralph Michaels' sheet, now Ralph's using 48.5 as the average for the last decade and a half, but he's got, I believe, 7 of the last 9 years going under that one, which was the prevalent total. And what's interesting to me also, it's a great free sheet. Once again, viewers, Ralph breaks down 30 different props, including shortest and longest touchdown. Will there be a safety? All the extra, everything. And it's free on his page right now. So check out Ralph Michaels' page at wagertalk.com. But what jumps out to me, Teddy, also the 5 overs the last 14 years, it's been 9 and 5, 75, 82, 87, 108, and 74. So they're not even necessarily those are bigger than big plays, right? They're not 50 or 60 yard touchdown. They're monster plays. So they're all, if you think that's not going to happen, you're in pretty good shape, I think, with the under with this prop. So it's an interesting take. And once again, check out yesterday's show Monday as Teddy breaks down the shortest touchdown prop. And I'm going to make you go watch it if you didn't watch it to get his take on that one, over or under 1.5 yards. And I have some insight in that as well, a little bit of a fade the public angle. So check that out on the replay. All right, let's keep
Just
it going.
real quick,
We've talked
Steve.
a lot of yeah, Teddy.
Let me just jump in. Of the 5 that went over, 2 kick return touchdowns, 1 interception return touchdown.
Right. That's what I figured.
It's the non-offensive plays, which sets up potentially you can find longest completion for Mahomes and Purdy, both in the 36.5, 37.5 range. I would look to the unders in those as well.
Another aspect that we no longer have with Kansas City, as opposed to some past Super Bowls, is the cheetah. No Tyreek Hill to break one, because he'd be about as dangerous as anybody on the and I think, San Fran, we'll talk more about it as the week goes on at the Super Bowl, but if you think McCaffrey, obviously the dangerous player, but he's not the type of guy that's probably going to have like a 60-yard touchdown. It's going to be a swing pass or a running play, and maybe he could break one, but I think the setup makes a lot of sense on this one where you're going with it. And once again, Super Bowl props every day of the week here on the Big Game Breakdown from Teddy Covers, and I have a feeling the What's Bettors Learn segment is going to be Super Bowl focused as well, so stay tuned Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for more Super Bowl talk. But had a lot of college basketball. We'll have more once again at 2 o'clock Eastern today on the show. NBA tip-off show at 4 o'clock Eastern today on Tuesday. I'll be on that as well. But let's bring on Skee Profit in the meantime to talk a little bit of NBA. And Skee, welcome to the show. And we will get right into it with your first game here. Let's talk about, let's go, where do you want to go? Let's go Grizzlies Knicks. Big line here. The Knicks have looked really good since the 2-for-1 trade a month ago. Is this too big of a number that they get the win and non-cover, or do they roll in this one?
Yeah, they've been extremely good since they made that trade for OG to start the year. But as you mentioned, I think this line is starting to get a little bit out of control. For one, they will be without OG again for another game tonight. And this is just one of those games that they could absolutely overlook or just not put too much effort into. They're facing, it's a non-conference game versus a Grizzlies team who, I don't think I've seen an injury list this long. They have guys on 2-way contracts, 10-day contracts. New York is going to look on the other side and not really put too much, into the guys that they're facing. Meanwhile, on the other side, those guys have been playing hard. This is their opportunity they've been waiting for. They are coming off 2 back-to-back blowout losses, but I don't really fault them for that. One of them was on a back-to-back shorthanded, as I mentioned, and the other one was at a rest disadvantage versus the best team in the East who was off of a loss. So I'm not faulting them for those 2 games. They've covered 6 of their last 8. And if you look at the last 8 games, they're a top 10 defensive rated team. That's how they're staying in these contests. They're going to bring the energy. They're going to hustle. They're going to make all those kind of plays. And if they're playing good defense, they can keep this one respectable. I just think it's a little bit too many points for this Knicks team tonight.
So I'm with you 1,000% when it comes to the concept of Memphis being an undervalued commodity. They made me money last week. They're certainly a team who's playing really hard every night, and the markets have crashed on Memphis. But the one guy on the injury report that scared me is JJJ. He's been their best player by far. He's been the guy they need when the other team's going on a run. He hits the shot. He's the key to the whole defense. He's been healthy for much of the season, and now he's doubtful for tonight. And that's what I had Memphis in the short list. I'm like, not without JJJ. What's your thoughts about Jackson, and is that something that concerns you here for the Grizzlies side tonight?
He is a huge deal for this Memphis team, but that goes into what I was saying. Like, New York Knicks are going to look at that the same way. They're going to say, no Jaren Jackson Jr. tonight? Oh, it's an easy game. We can just sleepwalk through this one tonight. New York is just fine getting out of this game with the win. So I want to be with the hungrier, more motivated team. So it doesn't bother me too much here. And with the total as low, like we're looking at tonight, I think grabbing the points is one of the better things to do.
Yeah, and some of the sharper books have gone to 14.5. So there are some plus 15s, but a lot of 14.5s now as well. So it looks like that line might be starting to drop as we check the WagerTalk Live odds screen. And let's talk about the game right after it in the rotation tonight, also at 7:40 Eastern, and that's Orlando, Miami. Skee, from a side perspective, I know you're looking at the total here, but from a side perspective, just night and day here. You've got Orlando, one of the best point spread teams over the past year. They've now covered 5 straight after a couple losses. Miami Heat had their longest losing streak ever under Spoelstra, 7 straight games. They snapped that with wins over the Kings and the Wizards, but came back down to earth against the Clippers. And they've only covered now twice in their last 9 or so. So instead of the side, I guess the total might be the better look in this game. Which way are you going?
Yeah, the side is interesting, but I like the total a little bit more here. And I'll look at it from a few different ways. For one, you can look at how both of these teams have been playing lately. Both are bottom 10 in pace, and both defenses have been playing better than the offenses. You have an Orlando team who's gone under 10 of their last 15 games. The Heat have gone under 11 of their last 13. Outside of that, I look at the number that they're giving us today, 212.5, and it looks pretty low compared to the amount of points that, looking at the amount of points that they average and score for both of these teams, if you combine, it's around the 226, 227 number. So to see this one 212.5, I just think they're putting it low for a reason. You look at how both of these teams, or how they've played each other in 2 meetings so far this season. Neither one of those meetings touched 200 points. So I think we get more of that kind of a game. This is also teams in the 7th and 8th seed in the Eastern Conference, and seeds 6 through 8, they're separated by 1.5 games. So I believe this is one of the more important games in the season and on the slate today. And in games like that, I think you get a really high defensive effort. So on that note, I think we'll get a third meeting where, the total struggles to reach 200 points. I like the under between the Magic and the Heat.
So it's another one where there ain't no way I'm going to try to argue against this one. It makes perfect sense. It was on my short list as well. So it's certainly a game that stands out to me. That being said, this might, like the last time these two teams played, they played twice in January. And the last time, I actually remember I watched both the games. Miami really couldn't hit a buck. They stole the first meeting. They hit a three at the buzzer. And then last time out, Orlando's defense was all over Miami. Miami was healthy, as healthy as they've been at the time. They had all their key components. They just couldn't hit a shot. They missed everything. Do you worry at all that the Heat bring something on the offensive end tonight against a team that's done a pretty good job of shutting them down? Does Miami have another gear offensively to go into? Can they hit 3-pointers? Is there, what's your biggest fear for the Heat side in this ballgame?
The Heat do have another offensive gear, but they don't usually seem to get into it until the playoffs. They are missing Duncan Robinson. That's a big scorer, 3-point shooter for them. I'm unsure if he'll be back today, and he's missed a few games, so he might be a little bit rusty, even if he is out there. So I'm not worried about it, Teddy. I think we'll get another poor offensive performance from Miami. You look at how they've been playing in the last 5 games, bottom 5 offensive rated team. So if you just combine that with how slow I expect the game to be, I'm not too worried about it at all. You asked what my biggest fear is in this game. I guess it would be that Duncan Robinson is available, and he has one of those crazy career nights where he hits 9 threes, goes 9 for 9 or something like that. Other than that, I think this one stays relatively low scoring.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson's been out. He's questionable again with the concussion protocol, so really difficult to know what the situation is there. I guess you could always, if you could find a player prop, you could always hedge with a little Duncan Robinson over maybe, or the 3-point props, and then that would make you feel a little better. But those probably will not be out there because he is listed as questionable. Skee Profit, or if Prez was here, Skee Profits, because he does make profits, and he's Canadian. Skee's not Canadian. Prez is Canadian. Anyway, you get the point. Skee, it's $5 Customer Appreciation Tuesday. What else you got going on at WagerTalk?
Yeah, I have a few plays up and available in the association. You guys know where to find them here on the site. And also, I did enjoy a lot of the Super Bowl talk that you guys had going on. I have a Super Bowl package. You can get, everything I have available for the big game. And the past 3 years, I've been profitable every single year. So if you'd like to be involved, up and available at wagertalk.com.
And just like Teddy covers, Skee Profit is in the heart of Las Vegas, located right there. So he's in the pulse of the Super Bowl week, Super Bowl 58, Las Vegas style. Teddy, great show. We will do it again tomorrow on Wednesday. Just a quick reminder, once again, it is $5 Customer Appreciation Tuesday, which means every capper has a top best bet available at an instant 80% discount for just $5. Normally it's $25 a play. You can get 5 plays for the price of 1 with multiple different cappers tonight on Tuesday. Teddy Covers has a strong NBA best bet, and myself, Steve Merrill, I've got a strong college basketball best bet, and I'm 71-44 on college and pro sides, ranked number 1 at WagerTalk this season. So I recommend getting both of them. $5 college play for myself, Steve Merrill, and Teddy. Once again, you've got that NBA $5 play. Tell us about it and take us home.
Yeah, the NBA is running real good again. My NBA has been so streaky, but the 80% run here in February. Although my picture's not in that final. There's 15 cappers up there, and then my picture didn't make the customer appreciation.
Really?
So I guess,
Wow. Let's look at that. Yeah, man, that I would have had the minus 1,000.
It is what it is.
Up there for sure.
Yeah. It looks like they're phasing me out. And I'm going to face
my guess
myself.
is you're behind Prez. You're probably in the middle, the very middle, and Prez got right in front of you at the last second when they snapped the photo. I think that's what happened.
It's what he does. That being said, let's phase the show out for Tuesday. We'll do it again tomorrow. Same time, same channel, 9 a.m. here on the left coast, noon for you back east. Between now and tomorrow's show, you guys know what to do. Take advantage of Customer Appreciation Day. Enjoy the games, and good luck.